had a model which showed us that we could have a text widget, which we inherited from to create a cell widget, and then we inherited from cell widget to create a cell autofill widget. So we would have a multi-line autofill. And the values for this are event types. So for example, residence, backspace, occupation, backspace, marriage. Or I could keep typing M-A-R-R-I-A-G-E space B. There you go, marriage bands. You just tab out and there you go. We just worked on the first column, the events column in the real app, so that when you tab out, your information will be saved. That's working now for particulars, age, date, and event. So it's now time to put the autofill functionality into the real app and test that, because there is an autofill functionality on the events column which we just worked on, but it's not finished till it autofills. So you type an O instead of typing O-C-C-U-P-A-T-I-O-N, occupation. So we got to say what the values are, and we got to use cell autofill instead of cell. We don't want cell autofill in every column, just for the two columns that have autofills. What we had before was a Tkinter entry widget, which had been converted to an autofill and then specialized to autofill only with event types. We're going to model that a little bit. There's not much to do, so that we will have a cell autofill event type. The code from the model has already been moved over to widgets. We already have a cell here, and we already have a cell autofill here. But we never used cell autofill yet in the real app. First thing we want to do is inherit cell autofill to create cell auto event type, or whatever we decide to call it. So if you go down here, there's the one that we used to use on here, and as you can see, it inherits from a plain entry that has been used as an autofill. That's basically just that right there, but it's very similar to what we're doing, only doesn't display multiple lines. If you're going to say user, create your own events, well, then we got to let them create their own events. Let's go ahead and use that multi-line autofill here. Another thing that would do is it would give us homogeneousness as we tab from place to place here, so that we don't have an entry here and a text here and a label here and a spin box here. We want as much as possible for everything to be symmetrical, because it simplifies the code considerably. These are not the same, but all 5 of these, let's see if we can make them all cell or cell autofill. Back here in widgets.py. So what is the difference? Because that's what we have to model in order to create something called cell autofill event type. What's the difference between entry auto event type, which we've been using up to now, and entry auto? What changed? Because this is an autofill. Entry auto is an autofill. Well, the only difference is we've got 2 attributes here, class level attributes, which are helpful by defining values for the autofill to look for. We're going to have something in autofill values here that only has event types in it. This here, everything below init, is the instance level. So all your self.this, self.that, those are all instance attributes. But up here, these are class level attributes. So I put it up here after not having it there for a long time. And I finally realized what a class level attribute is and what it can be used for. Not that I'm any expert on it, but it so far seems to be working fine. The things you define up here will apply equally well to every instance of this class, which comes in real handy and keeps you from doing stuff over and over for every single instance of that widget. So what it does is it runs a method which refers to this. That's this right here. It's a list of autofill values. It creates that list. And anytime you want to recreate that list, you run it again, because it goes to the database. Okay, it should go to the database. This is going somewhere else. I don't think this is adequate, because it's going to new tree, which is hard-coded event types here. And say the user has added some things, well, then you don't want to go here to create your new list. You want to go to the database, create your new list. But let me just tell you what this is for a second. This is newtree.py. This is where TreeBARD goes to create a new family tree as a database. You got your color schemes that are built into TreeBARD, event types, name types, all these things are used to populate the database, because for a long time I had this stuff built into the database. It's called default new tree.db in the data folder, and that got clunky. It got clunkier and clunkier. Finally, I realized I should have an empty database called default new tree.db with no records in it at all, instead of having all this stuff come preloaded. And then when someone starts a new database, they still copy default new tree.db, but then some code runs and just inserts all this hard-coded data into the new database. So that's the new system, but if the user has put his custom event types in, they're not going to be here. You don't want to add them to here, because then you're adding them here and to the database, which is wrong. That's against the laws of programming. So I'm going to make a note to myself. Of course, TreeBARD also has a feature where if you have several trees and you've got types added, then you can import from one tree to another, so you don't have to re-add all that stuff. And I've already shown how to do that by making it possible to import your places from one tree to another. That already works. So that feature can be added for all the other types whenever you feel like doing the work. Now, the reason that I created newtree.py was to get rid of a problem that I had where all the types were being kept in a global database instead of in the family tree database. We now have all the types being kept in the family tree database where they belong, so all your stuff is in one place. Almost nothing is being kept in the global database. It's called appwide.db. We used to have lots and lots of stuff in there, and then the problem is you got data in one database. It's using foreign keys from another database, which it's free to do. You can do a query that looks in both databases, but you cannot do foreign key enforcement between two databases. So I wanted to get rid of that, and that's how I figured out to get rid of that. So it was a lot of work both ways, because I changed it and then I changed it back. All the types are now in the family tree itself, and they're copied there from newtree.py. So if the schema of those types tables changes, then newtree.py has to change, but the types don't change much. They're very basic. The schema of the database doesn't change much. So what we're going to want to do, let's just copy this right under cell autofill. We can do this for now. Instead of an entry, it's now a text widget. We're going to call it a cell because it's a table cell. That's what it's made to do. It can be used in other places too. And this is cell autofill. I made a note to improve this. We're not going to do it right now. It'll still work. Okay, well, that should be ready to use. So we're going to go over to events table. It used to be called entry auto event type, like that. See, it used to be in the overlay. The overlay's gone now. Entry auto event type, change to cell auto event type. There may be a few more. New event. Oh, this one's nice and wide. This one stands alone. It's not in the table. I want to keep that one. New event input. No reason to change that. We used to have event types in the assertions dialog, but they're not used there anymore. I was thinking I made a boo-boo, and I did. We want to keep both of those. Why? We're making the same list for both widgets? Why? Well, because you're making a list here for every entry auto event type widget. Here you're making a values list for every cell auto event type, because those are class level variables. If you go down here where we make the table cells, then there's going to be a place where we use cell, but we're not going to use cell when we want to cell autofill. So we're going to have a special extra level of indentation here to make the experts think we're beginners. And then we're going to go like if column is in 1, 3, and 4. If column equals 0, cell auto event type, and then we're going to have values equals something or another, autofill values, And for now, we're going to do places too, but we'll change this eventually. We'll have elif column equals 2 under here someplace. Then we'll have cell auto event place. That's next after we get this one running. I don't see any reason not to just try that real quick and see what the first error is. And you can see here a new feature that I created. Besides the fact that I've cleaned up a lot of little problems since I made my last movie. See that? That's our first error. But did you see that big old blank teal colored screen? There used to be a lot of flashy, you know, when it opens, because the new colorization scheme is very fast compared to the old one, but that's not why it flashes. The reason it flashes is because it creates all white widgets and then it colorizes them. And even though it's fast, you don't want to really see that. So the purpose of that big teal colored screen is so the user doesn't see all that flashing, and so I don't have to figure out a really super intelligent way to fix it. While you're loading the app, you don't see very much flashing. You might remember from before, when you start seeing this, it generally tends to mean that you do not have your widget listed yet in the colorization scheme. Learn that by experience, because the error message is not very helpful. So I'm looking for a big long dictionary. You tell me if you see it flashing by. There it is. Styles. We got cell autofill. See what that does. Oh my. That's much better. You see now that dark green colored screen is all gone. It only exists for a second, then it's gone till you restart TreeBARD again. These widgets in this column are now autofills. So I'm going to create a simple, this is not a cell, this is an entry. I showed you that entry auto event type. That's what this is. So I'm going to create a simple generic widget. Yeah, I'd like to get rid of that flashing too. Same problem, but it required probably a different solution. What's going to happen if I delete that and start typing occupation instead? There you go. Tab out. See if there's any errors. Nope. Control F5 to double check. It's still there. Now it's been interfiled with undated events and attributes at the bottom of the table. Dated are up here with birth and death. Undated or down here. If I add a date here, then that should move up to the top. Let's say occupation, say 1922. Occupation 1922. What if we say blacksmith? This is no longer an entry. It acts different because it's not one. It's a cell. It's a text widget. If you go home, well, you see, you can use the arrow keys, up and down arrow. But when I tab out, it should redraw the table. Well, it doesn't, because I think I told it not to anymore. Is there an error? No. So if I go Control F5, okay, now it redraws the table. So you can just keep your stuff in there like that, or you can redraw the table anytime you want. It was already in the database, or it would not have come back when I redrew the table. That came straight out of the database when I redrew the table by going Control F5. I believe Control F5 redraws this whole page, the person tab. Probably redraws this too. I also want to point out a few things that I've fixed up here. This is something that was bothering me. By the way, we still have overlays up here, and I was thinking about getting rid of them, doing like this down there, so you just tab and type, tab, type, tab, type. I don't think so. TreeBARD is a showcase of functionalities. Here's we're going to show the overlay way of doing things. And here we're going to show the more convenient way of doing things. But what I was going to say is here you have a null partner. If I wanted to give her a child with Orlando, then I would click here, add child to selected partner. Here in the Philippines, they would say Badilio. I believe the Portuguese would say that too, wouldn't they? As long as it goes in the database instantly, that's what I care about. And there is your new child for the null partner and Orlando Badillo. Now, here's a different case. Now, I want to create a child for an unknown spouse of Orlando. But I'm pretty sure that this unknown child is not the sibling of Deborah or Finn Badillo. what you'd want to do is create a different partner and give the person an unknown name, not the word unknown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't know her first name, don't know her last name. We're going to add a partner to Orlando Badillo, but this is not a null partner. This person has a name. It just happens to be underscore underscore. I got all this working yesterday. It was fun. Okay, now I can add my new person like this. Add child, say Janice B. Add child. Auto sort. You can just tab through here. You don't need the mouse. And there she is. So that's how you deal with null partners. You got to be careful because anything you add to a null partner is going to end up being siblings of each other. Well, I'd say we've done good. Look, we did that before. You and me, we did this together. That works. That's really nice. I mean, the code for doing this was so complicated before. We just blasted right through and replaced it with good code. It's simple code now. That's why it works so well. Oh my goodness. This is really coming along. I'm happy with this. Well, let's test one more thing. What if I try to create a couple event? Well, why would that be any different? It's no different. But yeah, I'm glad I did that because when I added that, you see there's another null partner. You can now have more than one null partner. That means that in the couples table, Orlando has null partner in 2 different rows of the couple table. All right. Well, I think we're doing really good now. I'll see you next time, and we'll get started on the place autofill. I don't know what else to do. Keep on chipping away at it. All right. See you soon.